Hi, Alex here from Rebeloper.com and welcome back to the channel and welcome back to this awesome tutorial on Cloud Firestore, and today we are going to learn how you can count likes. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Okay, now we are going to learn today how you can collect all of the likes for, let's say, a post, or all of the followers count for a user. And we are going to do that for our LA collection. And first of all, we are going to use a simple counter. And if you don't already did so, go ahead and go to the documentation and you can see that it is here, increment a numeric value. And basically we are getting the document and we are updating the data for, let's say, not the population. We are going to update it for the likes, and it's basically field value dot increment and by a number. Now this is kind of tricky because in the current version of Cloud Firestore it supports both doubles and int 64s, and we need to specify. So we are going to specify for int 64. Okay, so let's just jump right into the code and do so. Great. Now I have added a few more buttons and I would just build and run, basically 4 buttons, and I will show you what it looks like at the moment. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go ahead and take a look at the whole course. It's a whole playlist and the link is down below, so go ahead and take a look at the other tutorials where we built all of this out. Okay, so you can see we have an increment button, a create distributed counter, distributed increment, and get count. Now that is really interesting. What are these distributed counters? Well, we can have a lot of likes on one post per second, well, in real time, and that is how things work. Maybe there would be, let's say, 10 likes per second for a post. So the rule of thumb here is that usually we can write to a document once per second in Cloud Firestore. So that is the rule. If you believe that that document will be updated or maybe incremented more than once in a second, then you should consider using distributed counters. Of course, can be a little bit more expensive, but you have to know if that document is updated more than once a second. And yeah, that's the rule of thumb. So let's increment. So basically we are just going to add +1 here, or you could have +5 or whatever you would like. But here we would like to have this LA document to be updated with 1. So that is pretty simple. I have already added this reference here, reference manager root. It's under the collection cities and the document name is LA. So what we want to do here is select the reference and simply select update data, and I will of course use the one with the collection completion because I want to catch the errors if there are any. So here we are going to, let's say, have likes maybe, and field value dot, and there is increment double or increment integer. So let's choose increment int 64, and if we add in here 1, it will have an error. And let me just ambiguous use of increments. So basically we are not saying correctly, so we are not typing in what type of incrementation do we want. So we are going to use int 64 and add that in there. And yeah, that is what we are going to do. Let's have a look at our completion here, error, and I'm just simply going to copy and paste this so we save a little bit of time. So successfully incremented likes. That's what I'm going to type in here. Okay, so of course this is not yet available in the database, so we are going to create it. So let's build and run, and let's take a look at the database. As you can see, there isn't any field for likes, but that is okay. So let's tap on increment here, and we should see, there it is, likes 1. There it is. Okay, now that is okay. And let's do some more. Okay, 2, maybe 1, 2, 3, and there we go. It's basically updating, but yeah, if there are a ton of likes, then you want to use a distributed counter. So let's take a look at the documentation, what this distributed counter is. And at the end of this increment numeric value section, you have this distributed counters page link. So let's open that up and let's take a look at what this really means. So many real-time apps have documents that act as counters. For example, you might count likes on a post or favorites of a specific item. In Cloud Firestore, you can only update a single document about once per second, which might be too low for some high-traffic applications. So that is why we are going to use distributed counters. Well, basically, it's just a little trick. And go ahead and take a look at the example here. I have read that and a little bit modified it, and basically I'm going to jump right into my own code and explain you how all of this works. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit about limitations. The solution is great, but the shard count, the number of shards, controls the performance of the distributed counter. Too few shards, some transaction may have to retry before succeeding, which will slow writes, of course. With too many shards, reads become slower and more expensive, of course. And the cost. The cost of reading a counter value increases linearly with the number of shards because the entire shard subcollection must be loaded. Now, what are these shards? Well, basically, we are grabbing available documents and we are writing the count in all of them. And let's say we have 10 shards and we are counting a new like in randomly in one of them. And then we want to grab all of that data. We are going to collect all of those and add them together, and then we have our collective like count. So let me just jump right into the code and show you how this looks like. If you don't already have this, go ahead and take a look at the link down below in the description, and you can download the resources for this tutorial. And maybe amongst others, you will see this Firestore distributed counter.swift file. And yeah, let me just guide you through it. So we are going to first create a counter, and we are going to use a batch of a Firestore batch. We will talk about batches later on. What you really need to know right now is that we are writing to the database more than once, and I want to know if all of those writes succeed and write them only if all of them did succeed. So that is why we are going to set the number of shards, and we are going to set a different number of shards depending on what you add in here. Let's say 10 is a good choice relatively, and we are going to set the shards and the count to be 0 there. So yeah, we are going to first create this, and if you take a closer look to the documentation, this is not the way it really adds that. It's basically setting some data in a for loop. But I don't really like this. I want to know that actually this shard really succeeded in writing to the database. So we are using a batch here. Okay, next up we have increment counter by, and this is an integer. This is basically a simple updated data increment that I have just shown you, and we are handling all of the errors. And if you noticed, we are using SwiftFi's result completion. Yeah, pretty cool there. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go ahead and take a look at the video that I explain result in SwiftFi. Okay, next up we have finally get count, and we have this reference, and here in the increment, of course, we have the reference too. And yeah, that is basically it. We are getting all of the documents and adding all of that total count up. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at our functions here. What do we need to do next? Create a distributed counter. So if you take a look at here, I have already implemented that. I want to create a new collection called the likes and the document likes. Now, this is basically pretty straightforward because I want to have this separately from the LA document, not like this one. Where was that here? So I'm just updating the LA document. I want to have a separate collection / document in there. So let's create our distributed counter, and you only have to do this, and make sure you do this only once. Okay, so let's see here, Firestore distributed counter. There we go, and let's just type in create counter, and the reference of course will be this reference with the likes document. Number of shards, well, 10 is a good choice. Well, you have to basically kind of know how much you want. Of course, when you increment, you can select how many you want to use from these shards. So yeah, you could add in here to 10 and then later on use 2. So I will just create a new variable here. So let number of shards equals 10. Okay, and let's just add that in there. Now in the completion, we have our result, and if you really take a look at it, we had a bool and the error. So let's handle this result in real SwiftFi fashion mode. So switch result and add in here the brackets, and let's just wait a little while because it will say switch must be exhausted, and let's fix this, and it will add in all of those 2 cases. I won't add in here anything for the success because that is just a boolean value, so I will just simply print out, and here I will just print out the errors localized description. So failed to create counter with error, and here we go, our errors localized description. There we go. We need to add in here the error. Okay, and localized description. Great. So let's build and run and see how all of this works. And as you can see, it's pretty awesome. Just a few lines of code with result type, and that's it. So let's go to our browser and let's see what happens here. Well, basically we won't see anything, I believe, because it does not update here, but after we do click on here, we are going to refresh the page. So let's create distributed counter and maybe see next code. There it is, successfully created counter with 10 shards. Great. Now let's go back to our browser and refresh this page with the LA document. And now we can see that we have a collection called likes, a document called likes. Here we have the number of shards called 10 shards, and here we have our 10 shards, and each of them have a count field, count key for this field, and 0 is all of their values. Great. Now what is up next? Well, we need to increment the count, so let's do that. Distributed increment button is what we want to push, and of course here we have our reference again, and it is pretty simple. So Firestore distributed counter increment counter by, and I will just add in here a new constant called increment value equals 1. Okay, and I will add that in there, and the reference document is ref number of shards. Let's use only 2 here. Let's see, we have a real low value volume of customers, so I will just use only 2 shards, and maybe you could add this in a remote config so you can change it on the fly if you wanted to. And here under result, let's take a look at the result, and I will simply copy and paste so we can have a little bit more time discussing rather than just typing all of this out. So successfully incremented counter with value, and let's see what increment value is. That's 1 at the moment, and did not copy this out properly, and this many shards. Okay, failed to not create counter increment. Okay, counter with error. So let's build and run, and let's see our counter finally incremented with the distributed counter solution. Okay, let me just go ahead and open up here, and we will see that some of these, maybe 0 or 1, will light up because we have only 2 shards available at this incrementation. With 0 or 1 will highlight up, and we will have the count incremented there. So let's see, distributed increment. Let's tap 1. There we go, 0. Let's tap again on the 0. Again, 3. So 3 is the count. So now let's tap a little bit, maybe a little bit more violently. So distributed increment, there we go. It is saving all on the 0, so count is 8. But if we added more, then we could have all of this. These will be added later on if the so-called write does not succeed. Okay, so that is that. Now finally we are going to get the count, and that is also pretty easy with the Firestore distributed counter. Get count, and the reference again is the likes document that I have already added there, and under the completion we will have a result. And here you can see that all of our incremented, just to show you that all of this has been printed out. So coming back to the count getting, result is here. Again, let's just copy and paste all of this result so it would be real quick. And there we go. Successfully incremented counter. Now we want to have the results. So here we are going to have count and successfully got counter, or let's just type in here or total count is and count. Okay, and failed to get total count. Okay, so let's build and run again one last time for this tutorial, and let's see if we do get 8, because all of these are just zeros. Okay, so we should get 8 when we tap on get count. So let's see if that happens. So tapping on get count, there we go, and total count is 8. Awesome. Okay, now that is it for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed this new feature of Cloud Firestore, the increment value, and of course the distributed counter for likes and follows, and all of these kind of stuff where you have to write a bunch of times in around 1 second. Okay, hope you enjoyed this video as I already told you. If you did, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, of course, and hit that notification bell to get notified of the next videos. And as usual, I will see you in the next one.